In this video, we'll give you the top waiver wire players to target heading into Week 7, along with our top reactions to Week 6. I'm Jim Coventry, joined by Anthony Cervino of RotoWire. Anthony, the waiver wire, quarterbacks. He could be available in some one quarterback league. So I'm going to throw Caleb Williams' name out there. Yeah, he's had 3 cupcake matchups. I get it. Every week he's making progress. He hangs in the pocket. He stays longer and longer. He understands when to get out. He knows when to run now. He's had 2 good rushing games in a row. My mind, even when the matchups get tougher, he has the looks of a borderline quarterback one going forward. Thoughts on Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I like Caleb Williams a lot. And if you look at his rest of season schedule, like there's not, I know Dallas has a good wide receiver quarterback schedule for fantasy. Caleb Williams, rest of the year, this guy could be a locked and loaded quarterback one. We are seeing him just now, I think, become a really good NFL quarterback. The weapons are there. They're running the ball well. They have one of the better defenses in the NFL. So in terms of fantasy, I think we could use Caleb Williams, and especially coming out of the bye at Washington, at Arizona. Both of those games projected to shoot out. So if he's available in your league, you got to pick him up.
The rest of these quarterbacks are mostly super flex options, and I know it's hard to find a quarterback on the waiver wire in super flex, but we still throw them out there. Drake May throws 3 touchdown passes, runs for 38. We knew he could run. Playing Houston, not a great matchup, but he still came out, made his mistakes, of course, but he leaned on Kayshon Boutte, more on him later, a little on Demario Douglas. Anyway, thoughts on Drake May?
Drake May, I'm excited about him. I thought, okay, like you want to use the bridge quarterback thing in New England. They don't have the best roster in the world. Fine. Coming in, this is one of my favorite quarterbacks out of this draft class. He can do a little bit of everything. He's deceptively mobile. He's big. And he comps a little bit to Josh Allen. And they don't have the greatest weapons in the world. He goes for 3 touchdowns, a couple of mistakes, almost 250 yards. And this is a game where no Ram Stevenson. So really a one-dimensional offense. And Houston's defense is good. So I like Drake, man. I'm really excited about him. And get fantasy, super flex leagues. You got the Jaguars in Week 7. He's absolutely a start next week.
Spencer Rattler probably gets at least one more start with Derek Carr out with the oblique injury or abdominal injury, whichever we're going to call that. In the first half, Rattler, look, he played without Chris Olave. He got knocked out with a concussion early in that game, first drive. And yet in the first half, Rattler put up some decent numbers. Second half, the pressure was coming. Todd Bowles was going to dial it up. It was never going to be easy. But anyway, Rattler runs for a little bit, puts up some decent numbers. Again, another super flex option.
Yeah, a little bit less excitement when it comes to Spencer Rattler. The Olave injury, not like he's been doing a ton in fantasy anyway, but obviously him not being on the field is not good. They got guys like Bub Means, I believe, is going to step in. This is not a great situation, and it's also not a great situation. The next 2 games, Denver and the Chargers, 2 of the best defenses in the NFL, so I don't even think he's usable.
The next one is your weekly reminder that if people thought Anthony Richardson was starting last week until the last minute, he wasn't. If somebody dropped Joe Flacco, weekly reminder, whenever Flacco's in, you're starting him. Anything on Flacco? Does he get the job? Is he going to keep this job? Was Richardson healthy?
That's where I was going here, because there were like coming into the weekend and Sunday, you get those overnight Schefter or Rappaport tweets. They were talking like Richardson's going to be good to go.
Right.
I don't know if this was a precaution or more let's keep you out another week to win a football game.
He may have the job. So get him on your roster. If he doesn't, you drop him. But Flacco's got to be there. Look, I don't know if it's going to happen, but Will Levis has to go. He didn't even throw for 100 yards against the Colts. Mason Rudolph is a speculative ad. It may not happen, but add him speculative. He's not a great quarterback, but in a super flex league, if you need a body at quarterback, Mason Rudolph does have some weapons. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and I was trying to be high on Will Levis, and it was really more the situation around him. He's just not good right now. And I think for the Titans, they need to do their due diligence and see if they could try to win games with Mason Rudolph, or the rest of the season they're playing for draft position.
Last one's another wild speculative ad. Look, Nick Chubb may come back this week. So if the organization wants to do him a solid, you got to get Winston in and Watson out. Again, I'm sure ownership doesn't want to have egg on their face with all the draft capital and all the money they paid him, but it might be time. Any chance Winston gets a job?
The leash is getting shorter and shorter. There's already egg on all over the face. This has been a disaster since day one with Deshaun Watson. whether it's injuries or otherwise. They need to get him off the field. This is not anything to do with he's done off the field. I throw that to the side. He is not a good quarterback in the NFL right now, and I think the locker room is going to start. Or the head coach Stefanski, he's going to start losing the locker room if he doesn't make a decision.
All right, we're going to move to running backs. And Anthony, I always appreciate you doing the timestamps for me. I forgot to say that. Thank you for that. Running backs, Dameon Pierce looked great in his return from injury, and he looked good early in the season. 8 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown. He had a long run. Those aren't going to happen all the time, but he's a change of pace to Joe Mixon. It was a favorable game script, so Ogunbowale played a little extra yesterday, but I still think Pierce could provide some flex value. Thoughts?
Yeah, both Pierce and Mixon out since week 1, and they both show up yesterday. And Mixon has an unbelievable game, and we see some run out of Dameon Pierce here as well. Cam Akers and even Ogunbowale, I think they're going to become afterthoughts as long as Pierce and Mixon are healthy. So if you are rostering one of these other Houston backs, I think you might want to drop like a guy like Cam Akers and pick up Pierce.
Next one, if Jonathan Taylor continues to miss time, high ankle sprain, he may. Tyler Goodson. Trey Sermon was terrible, 10 for 27. Goodson, second week in a row, he was mildly productive, 10 touches, 61 yards. Again, bye weeks, injuries. If you're scraping the barrel and you need somebody, could Tyler Goodson be a 1 week useful flex play?
Yeah, I mean, the offense is moving well right now with Joe Flacco, as we talked about earlier, and they like to run the football, and they're going to run the football no matter who's back there. So if you're in a bind at running back, pick up Tyler Goodson.
Next one, Isaac Guerendo. I don't know if Jordan Mason will miss time. He had a shoulder injury, sprained AC joint. Sometimes they harness him up. He's not a pass catcher, so you literally could harness him up and he could run and hold the ball. He might be back. But if he's not, Guerendo had that one long run. I know, 10 for 99. Most of it came on one run. I get it. He didn't look great on the other ones. But any 49ers running back who has volume has value. Thoughts?
Yeah, he's just a next man up in a volume role team that wants to run the football. And until CMC comes back, you can make the case that Guerendo, if you're in a deeper league, you should have been rostering him already because, he's the handcuff to Mason and all the workload he was getting. And if Mason does miss time and CMC isn't back, we could be looking at a full workload for Isaac Guerendo.
It just keeps rolling in San Francisco. All right, next. Early in the season, Anthony, I was watching Sean Tucker return kickoffs, and he looked really good. He looked very powerful and fast. Well, he got a roll yesterday with Rachaad White out, and he goes for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns on 17 touches against the Saints. And Buck Irving went off as well, not to that degree. If Rachaad White misses more time, we've already seen it's a shared backfield. Sean Tucker, is there any chance beyond this week that he could carve? I know a 3-man backfield will never work, but could he possibly carve out more work?
Is it crazy to think that Sean Tucker might be the best running back in this backfield? He had a lot of hype coming out of college. He also had that, it was either an injury or something with his health that kind of held him back last year. He ran better than Bucky Irving. He certainly looked better than Rachaad White. There's possibly a world where maybe Rachaad White, when it's all said and done, takes a back seat to Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker. I looked at this morning, 0% if you're using a sleeper platform, 0% ownership right now in redraft leagues for Sean Tucker. This is the type of guy you absolutely want to roster and stash if you have a deep enough bench.
Hey, we don't see it often, but sometimes a player comes out and plays so well they can't keep him off the field. We'll see if that's the case, but Irving's been decent between the tackles. But, man, it could be really insane if Sean Tucker can play 50% of the way he played in the game against the Saints. Next one, Kimani Vidal catches a long touchdown pass. Didn't see that one coming. Distant number 2 to J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins was the workhorse here. Vidal only had a few touches, but could see an expanded work role, especially if Dobbins gets overworked or if game script works out. Any thoughts on Vidal?
Yeah, I mean, with Gus Edwards obviously on IR, they have Hassan Haskins there. But that was certainly worth adding. We know that there's the injury risk and volatility with J.K. Dobbins. Before Gus Edwards got hurt, he was getting roughly I would say it was almost like a 55-50 split. He was getting a lot of touches. So maybe Vidal works at that type of a workload. Doesn't mean he's going to be effective with it because Gus wasn't. This is Dobbins' backfield, but you certainly want to hold on to this handcuff.
Vidal had 24% of the snaps, and Hassan Haskins had 4% of the snaps. So it was definitely Vidal as the backup. Again, he only got 4 carries and 2 touches. And that game, they had a bigger lead late. But yeah, right now, Vidal seems to be the guy as you're intimating. So let's move on to the next one. This is fantasy football for you in a nutshell. Travis Etienne goes down with a hamstring injury. Last week's waiver wire darling, who was Tank Bigsby, guess what happens? Dearness Johnson plays more than he does. He ends up with 8 touches, which is 1 more than Bigsby. I don't understand it. I don't understand the Jaguars. Even in terms of snap share, Dearness Johnson gets 56%. Bigsby gets 27%. Anyway, if Etienne misses time, that backfield is always going to be a shared situation. Anything on Dearness Johnson?
Yeah, this is another situation you want to pick this guy up because they're going to run the football. They need to try to get this offense going. I don't know if you need to make a move, whether it's Peterson or Press Taylor, but regardless, these running backs have value in this offense, and they were able to move the football. They just weren't scoring points yesterday. So yeah, and Dearness Johnson, pick him up if you need a body.
Yeah, I this franchise, and we had a comment from Ruckus. I just don't get the franchise. I don't get the ownership. I don't get the coach. I don't get the offensive coordinator. Jamie tells us in the chat that Schefter reported ETN is week to week. So yeah, you get a piece of the backfield. Don't know what they're gonna do for you, but hey, in fantasy football, you need running backs. We all understand how that goes. So there's no question that would be 100% accurate. Next one, Audric Estime did not play a lot of snaps. I believe it. Well, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was 4% of the snaps. He gets 2 carries, 13 yards. Javonte Williams, 6 for 23, so it's almost 4 yards per carry. He had been 13 for 61 the prior week, 16 for 77. The Chargers are actually a good defense that he faced. Yeah. So that said, Javonte Williams he's not been good, but he's not been terrible. But that said, Audric Estime could begin to carve out a little work. They don't trust McLaughlin. His snaps have been 34%, 37%, 25% yesterday. Anything on Audric Estime?
Yeah, you got a couple of upcoming matchups here, week 7 and 8. New Orleans are 24th against running backs. You got Carolina. And what do we know about Carolina? You can start the top 2 running backs against their of their opponents. I mean, look what happened yesterday with Algier and Bijan. Like, this has happened quite a few times this year. So if Estime somehow, like, you need a running back in a flex next week, I think you can start Javonte and Estime, and you're going to get some production against, maybe against the Saints, but certainly against Carolina week 8. So get ahead of the market, pick them up now.
If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings. Get a free 2-day trial. No credit card needed. Head on over to rotowire.com/Jim. You can check out all of our content. Anthony, let's move to wide receivers. Some people may have dropped Keenan Allen. He did not have more than 33 yards in a game. I know he missed multiple games earlier. And even yesterday, he had 41 yards, but he found the end zone twice. So that said, the yardage still is awful. But if he's going to be using the red zone and he's still Keenan Allen, and maybe he was getting healthier. Thoughts?
Yeah, this shocked me because of how irrelevant he's been. And Keenan Allen goes, and if you watch the catches, like especially I think the one in the end zone he made, he looked like vintage Keenan Allen. And again, we just talked about Caleb Williams, this Bears offense, how prolific it's getting to be and what it can possibly be. And the enemy defense, they got to worry about Komet. They got to worry about Odunze. Like, Keenan Allen could be seeing nickel corners. And if he's healthy, he's going to win those matchups.
Next player is Demario Douglas of the New England Patriots. He plays about 68-70% of the time in the slot only, but he is on the field, and we kind of knew when Drake May would come in, the pressure would be coming, and where's your outlet? It's often in the slot. And sure enough, Demario Douglas, 9 targets, 6 for 92 and a touchdown. And even the prior games, he had a 59-yard game against Miami, 69 against the Jets. So Demario Douglas is a good player. He's a player that probably could get you flex value and maybe even a tick better in PPR leagues. Thoughts?
Yeah, you got to pick this guy up. This is now, and remember last year, Demario Douglas broke late. He was a quality fantasy player in PPR down the stretch. Now we're seeing 3 out of the past 4 games, over 11.9 PPR points, season high 21-2 yesterday. Now, what's significant, in those 3 out of 4 games where he's getting going, he's had at least 9 targets. So he's getting used. I think he's the number one. Like, if you want to view somebody as a quote-unquote number 1 wide receiver in this Patriots receiver room, I think we have to say it's Demario Douglas with the volume he's getting. And I'm really optimistic on Drake May and what this offense can potentially be down the stretch.
Rashad Bateman of the Ravens is next. He has at least 58 yards in the last 2 games. I know the pass attempts could be week to week. We'll talk about the Ravens later, so I don't want to spoil that. But realistically, the number 2 target, averaging 4.5 targets per game, Rashad Bateman doesn't look terrible.
No, and this is another player. He's also getting a little bit of volume, all things considered, with how sometimes you don't throw the ball a lot in this offense. He's had 12 targets in the past 2 games, starting to string together some big plays. So I think 13.5 yards average depth of target. He's seeing 15.1% of the team targets and a decent number of air yards. So if you're looking for a big play guy, I think that's Bateman. I don't know if we can count on volume, right? There's not going to be a consistent 8 targets every week with this guy, but over the top, I think he can beat the good matchups.
The Chiefs had a bye last week, so some people may not have added Juju Smith-Schuster coming off as 7 for $130 on 8 targets. Yeah, he's not getting 130 every game, but I want to point this out. He played in 2022 with Mahomes. He had over 70 yards in 7 games through week 14, so they have a chemistry, and he was productive, and then injuries kind of slowed him down. But right now, he looks reasonably healthy. He is probably their primary possession receiver. I know Kelsey's the tight end. I get that, but as a wide receiver on the outside, he's the only receiver that really fits that possession role for them, and teams are not going to be able to dedicate resources to him when the Chiefs are running 3 tight end sets, 4 tight end sets on some plays. Thoughts on Smith-Schuster?
I listen. I was ahead of market on Juju. I thought they brought him back for a reason, and you kind of have to put the blinders on because of how poorly he was in New England. Everybody played poorly in New England. Yep. And Andy Reid, he likes to lean on guys that he knows and guys who knows his offense, which is why they brought in Kareem Hunt. There probably might be a better running backs on the open market right now, but he trusts Kareem Hunt. He trusts Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Mahomes does too. We're not going to get these 130-yard games every week from Juju at this point, but can we get a high PPR point floor? And is he going to be the possession guy in this offense? Yeah, I would bet on that.
Yeah, totally. Tim Patrick is next. I know Tim Patrick. The Broncos let him go. He loses 1 full season to an Achilles, loses 1 full season to an ACL. He's almost 30, if not 30, maybe 29 or 30. He had 2 catches for 52 yards before the week 5 bye. Yesterday, 68 yards before the game was over. It was before it was out of hand. He's not going to get a ton of targets, but in a deep, deep, deep league, you might need somebody. Anthony?
Yeah, it's still baffling why Denver let this guy go, because before all the injuries, he was a nice football player. Like, he was a nice number 3 with Judy and Cortland Sutton over there in Denver. And he's a nice number 3 now with the Detroit Lions. He could have had a big day. That touchdown arguably got called back, but he fell right on the goal line. I think Montgomery pushed it in. But this is a Detroit Lions team. Khalif Raymond, like Tim Patrick, should emerge as a quality weapon. And if somebody goes down, if Jameson, if ARSB goes down, like if you need a wide receiver stash, Tim Patrick on this offense could be a quality player moving forward.
This one may be sneaky to some, not to all. Kayshon Boutte. He had been playing about 20 to 30% of the snaps. And then in last week against Miami, sneaks up to 67% of the snaps, goes 2 for 34. And then he plays 83% of the snaps, only gets 3 targets. But he had a clear connection with Drake May, 3 for 59 and a touchdown. It's possible when this new quarterback comes in, he finds, and I know DeMario Douglas will be the hot guy in the middle, but it might be Kayshon Boutte that emerges as kind of Drake May's guy. Any thoughts there?
I like DeMario Douglas more, and I think somebody like Polk gets a lot of hype. But Boutte last year, he was a nice player coming out. I think he went a little bit later in the NFL draft. I'm not sure why off the top of my head, but this Patriots wide receiver room, nothing is set in stone. This is a growing offense, a young quarterback, and I think he's going to throw the football to the guys that he trusts the most. So why not Kayshon Boutte, who had a nice game yesterday?
Last wide receiver, if Chris Olave misses a game with the concussion he sustained yesterday, Bub Means stepped into his role, played about 71% of the snaps, caught 5 of 8 targets for 45 yards and a touchdown. His quarterback, Spencer Rattler, I get it. But again, if you're in a deep, deep league and you need a fill-in for 1 week, and if Olave misses, any chance that Bub Means might get you a flex in a deep league?
it's got to be a really deep league. Like there's other guys like Coker from Carolina, Leggett if he's out there. There's just guys I like more. And at this point, like I'll take an Andy Dalton led offense over a Spencer Rattler led offense.
Yeah. At tight end, look, he's probably rostered in a lot of places, but I know there's some leagues where maybe they've ignored Cole Kmet thinking he had a good game or two. He's been an incredible fantasy option 3 of the last 4 weeks. He has games at 97 yards and a touchdown, another 70-yard game with a pair of scores. If he happens to be available in your league somehow, he is a legit tight end one right now.
I think so. Now, what worries me, if you look at the numbers on Cole Kmet, he's had these 2 spike games, but the other games he's played, he hasn't been really productive, like under 4 targets in all but 3 games this year. So if he's not giving us these big spike weeks, do you really trust him as a tight end one? I certainly think you roster him, but I get worried about, like, he almost reminds me of Kittle right now.
I could see that. Now, you look, but the tight end landscape's been weird this year, right?
Yeah.
So in the 4 games since Caleb Williams started turning around, you're right. 1097 and a touchdown, 3 for 34, which is a 6.4 PPR game. As a tight end, that actually cracks like top 12 a lot of the time. And then 3 for 57, again, 8.7 PPR points. Again, it's not super, but for a tight end, that's a down week. And then he goes, fair. So that's really, and really, once you get outside the top 6 tight ends, you just need some points and you hope there's upside. So anyway, Kmet might have some. Cade Otton's next. 27 targets over the last 4 games, at least 44 yards in 3 of those games. He didn't hit the yardage yesterday, but he found the end zone. Look, he's been productive over the last month. He's not a tight end one, but if you're in a pinch and you need somebody, Cade Otton could work.
Yeah, he's getting some volume, and this is one of the more prolific offenses in the NFL. And I think with your point on Cole Kmet, on how this is an ascending offense in Chicago, this is also a productive and ascending offense with Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay. So why not grab a piece of it?
I say him every week, and maybe he's rostered at this point, but he did have 2 goose eggs in the last 4 games. Mark Andrews. He now has 51 yards in 3 of the last 5 games or more. Found the end zone yesterday. Last week, he should have scored, but the ball was thrown behind him by Lamar Jackson. Caught it, tried to fight his way in, couldn't get there, but it would have been touchdowns 2 games in a row. He's not playing a lot of snaps, only about half, but he's been productive in 3 of 5 games. If Mark Andrews is somehow on waivers, should he be rostered, or are you leaving him out there?
No, I think he should be rostered. The usage is starting to creep up. And look at Travis Kelce. He was, DOA the first couple of games. And when they need him in Kansas City, they're leaned on him. Now we have back-to-back games. Travis Kelce's looking like Travis Kelce again, out of necessity. There are going to be times this season where they're going to have to lean on Mark Andrews.
Let's do one more tight end. He hasn't been productive with it, but in the 7 quarters that Nico Collins has been out, Dalton Schultz has had 14 targets. He wasn't getting targets when he had Collins, Diggs, and Dell out there, but with only 2 of them out there, the targets are there. Eventually, if you get targets, Schultz has shown he can be a volume-based play. Anything on Schultz?
Yeah, 6 targets last week, 8 targets this week, and now against Green Bay, the matchup softens up. Actually, the next 2 weeks, you got Green Bay, the 2nd easiest matchup for tight ends, and then Indy in week 8, the 4th easiest matchup. And I believe yesterday, because I had Dalton Schultz in a couple lineups and a DFS and whatnot, I think he dropped the touchdown. So we don't have the red zone usage updated yet in front of me at least, but I think he had at least 1 red zone target that he dropped.
All right, let's get to our reaction part of the show. Reaction number 1, the Ravens outlast the Commanders 30-23. Look, I said there were 2 games I thought would be blowouts. I thought the Ravens would do their usual when they play an NFC team, which they most years is the 49ers, one year it's the Lions, one year Seahawks. They just boat race them. They didn't. And then the other game I call is a boat race, we'll talk about it later, was the Lions. That one I got, but I didn't get this one. The Ravens do win. They hold on 30-23. They do put up 30 points. Anthony, the beautiful thing about the Ravens is, I know the Commanders are not a good defense. I'm full understanding, no argument. But the Ravens all year to this point, they've either had a good passing day or they've had a good running day. They haven't really had both. Last week, Henry had the late touchdown. That was in overtime. In regulation, it was all passing. Well, this week, they got them both. Jackson goes for 323 and a touchdown, runs for 40. Big dog Henry, 132 and 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers goes off. Rashad Bateman, 70 yards. Andrews, 66 and a touchdown. Again, easy opponent, but it was fun to watch the Ravens have this type of performance. Thoughts?
This is the Ravens offense. I feel like they were trying to get, like, to me, J.K. Dobbins. If we had a healthy J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore, maybe we get a form of this offense. And it was always, they were bringing in Devonta. Remember Devonta Foreman or Devonta Freeman? He was coming in off there's always these guys off the streets coming in. They were productive, but this offense was never what it could be. Now you bring in that elite running back to put in with Lamar Jackson, and everything just opens up. And in this game yesterday, this was a scary offense. When you see Lamar Jackson go for 323 as a thrower, he also runs for 40, and then Derrick Henry goes for $130 and 2 scores. This is the team, right? Like we were watching that playoff game against the Chiefs, and I remember being on SXM with you, and I said, "Listen, I'm going Kansas City until somebody shows me that they can beat Mahomes." This Baltimore offense, if this game is played out again, I am siding with Baltimore. Look, that's how confident I am that this is a different Ravens team.
Look, I love Kansas City like many others. I know people hate them winning every year. Derrick Henry and that Steve Spagnuolo. Let's see you. Let me say his name right. Steve Spagnuolo. Let's game plan your way out of this one. You got Lamar. Fine. You've been able to take him away. All right, fine. We're going to run the big dog down your throat. And now let's see how you like it. I don't think, and I've sold him short before. I don't think he can game plan his way out of that one. Anything there?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. This Ravens team, and the biggest worry was the turnover in the offensive line and turnover on defense. This team looks like the best team in the NFL right now. And that was after an 0-2 start.
Yes. Now we do have to concede. The Ravens are not a very good defense. They're a good defense. They're not a very good defense. They have a lot of coverage breakdowns. Their secondary, Marlon Humphrey is not playing at the level he has at times in the past. Wiggins, the other corner, the rookie, it may take some time to really get his groove. Kyle Hamilton, some weeks you see him flying all over the field, other weeks not so much. The run defense is great, but the pass defense is not fantastic. And really that came true here. Jaden Daniels has a good game. He didn't go off, which is fine. The Ravens smartly kept him in the pocket a lot, held him to 22 yards rushing. But Daniels comes through, throws for 269, 24 or 35, good completion percentage like he's had all year. Found McLaurin. The deep passes weren't there, but McLaurin scores a couple of times. I was impressed with no Brian Robinson. I didn't think they'd run anyway on Baltimore. Baltimore doesn't even commit extra bodies. They stopped the run. But I was impressed that McLaurin and even Noah Brown, 58, and he drew a DPI on a downfield pass too, which would be like a 40-yard pass as well. I was impressed. Anything on the Commanders?
Yeah, I don't take much away from the Washington Commanders for this loss. Somebody had to lose this game. And Lamar historically plays the NFC East, the NFC in general really well. The Commanders were in this football game. And this is a team that, with a large liability on the defensive side of the ball, this game could have been ugly. This could, and they stayed close. They were able to keep it within one possession. So I don't think it's crazy to say that the Commanders are the best team in the NFC East by a wide margin.
You're right about that. You're right about that. What's going to be interesting down the road, and again, maybe it doesn't happen. McLaurin has eaten now. It's like 4 straight games. He has completely eaten. I still haven't seen a team like legit try to take him out. Let De'Ami Brown 1 for 11 beat you. Let Luke McCaffrey 1 catch for 5 yards beat you. Even let Noah Brown beat you. He's Noah Brown. He's a good blocker. He's had some big games. I get it, but he's Noah Brown. And I just am still stunned that nobody has said, we're taking him away on you. What else you got, kid? Am I wrong here?
No, but you bring up like, hey, let Noah Brown beat us. You got to remember last year, CJ Stroud, like Noah Brown had a couple of 100-yard games in a row for Stroud.
Like 180. He had like a 180 in there.
So like, you're right. I do think, like, to me, in a perfect world, if Washington wants to be serious, you pick up that phone and get Devontae Adams.
Or Amari Cooper.
Yeah. All right.
Right?
Yeah,
to get another receiver in there. That would be a great move. I know they're developing something, but you're right. They've got an opportunity, the Commanders, right now, to make some real noise. Get after it, guys.
Look what Houston did getting Diggs this offseason. Yes, they're building a young team, but they recognize, hey, like we got far in year one with Stroud. Let's go bring in Diggs. Let's get some more help for him. And Washington, I think, the GM, he comes from the 49ers. These are smart people there now. This is no longer the Dan Snyder regime.
It is not the Dan Snyder regime. Good call on that. So, yes, you said somebody had to lose this game. Both teams come out of this game looking good. Excited for the Commanders, excited for the Ravens. That defense has to get better, though. The Ravens defense has to get better because if they play the Chiefs are going to find a way to score points as well or slow the game down. And they're going to need stops in those games. So that's going to be the one Achilles heel, which normally with the Ravens, that's not the worry. It's usually not the defense. So they've got to get a little bit better than they're playing right now. Again, maybe Wiggins grows as a corner throughout the year, and maybe that helps them. We'll see. Reaction number 2, I know you'll hate this one. This boat race I called, the Lions steamrolling the Cowboys. The way I looked at it was Dallas's defense was never going to have a chance against this unit. I said they could run it down their throats. Well, they decided to go both ways. They did it Baltimore. They threw it. They ran it. They didn't even overwork Gibbs and Montgomery. Just 12 carries each. Goff only threw 25 times, goes over 300 yards with 3 touchdowns. They turned J-Mo loose 3 for 76. I want you to talk about this later. St. Brown scores a late touchdown. I want you to talk about that. Sam Laporta only gets 1 target. Only gets 1 catch, but it's a 52-yard touchdown. So his first good fantasy game of the year, like first double-digit fantasy point game of the year, I believe. Yeah, his first one. He had like an 8 and a 9. First time he hit 10 plus. So there's that. First of all, overall thoughts on the Lions just taking care of business against a wounded opponent.
Listen, Dallas was missing a couple of key players defensively. Bland,
Hendricks,
Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. The offense is obviously a shell of itself. This is a work in progress with the rookies in the offensive line, and you're facing that type of a pass rush. Like, this was never going to be, in my opinion, a great season for Dallas. But this game, I didn't see it playing out this poorly. But it starts back the playoffs, right? Dallas had that 2-year run. They couldn't be stopped at home. Green Bay embarrasses them, and we see the 3 home games this year. They've been embarrassments. They've been bloodbaths. Dallas can't get out of their own way. What this game reminded me of was, if you remember that Green Bay game, and it wasn't like like guys were wide open. It was big play after big play. It reminds me of that Saints game. Big play after big play. And this is what we had yesterday. This is now, and this isn't just like a Cowboys thing, right? Jared Goff did this going into the bye against Seattle. His past 3 games, he completes 18 passes. He goes for 199 and 2. He goes for 292 and 2, 18 for 18 in week 4. And then he goes 18 for 25 for 315 and 3. This offense is starting to hum now with the Detroit Lions. This is a really good football team. Now, losing Hutchinson's big. Maybe they pick up the phone and they're calling the Jets about Hassan Reddick. They need to do something there. Maybe they call the Bengals about Hendrickson. My biggest issue with the Detroit Lions, and and this isn't me being a Cowboys fan, this is me being a homer. Dan Campbell's going to end up shooting himself in the foot. This game was blown open. They just lost Hutchinson with a gruesome injury. He's out there doing hook and ladders, flea flickers with your starters. Why? Dallas wasn't coming back. That game was, they had starters in when Dak was already out of the game. Dan Campbell, like we saw this a little bit last year. It's like when he wants to prove a point towards the end of the year, he'll put his team, he'll make his team a liability. And I feel like Dan Campbell, he's a liability to this team with some of his decision making. Like, you really want to get your offensive lineman a touchdown that bad where you're going to put your whole team at risk? Because that could have easily been Jared Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, yeah, okay, I'm happy you got Amon-Ra St. Brown that touchdown. But what if he gets that touchdown and he gets hurt? So what are you doing here?
It's a great call because Dan Campbell plays like with his emotions too much. Very good coach. Team's done a lot of great things, but you're right. if he costs them a player because he has them out there when they don't need to be, every play in the NFL could be a potential disaster. Any play, a good player could be off the field. Nothing could go wrong when the player is off the field. So I think that's very, very interesting.
And on the other side of the ball, remember, like, didn't Branch get kicked in the head?
He did. But it's funny because, let's get Amon-Ra St. Brown a touchdown. He doesn't need a touchdown. Fantasy managers are happy, but he doesn't need that touchdown. He has a 1,500-yard season under his belt. Didn't need that touchdown, but let's get him on the field. But like you said, fortunately, he didn't get hurt. But the Hutchinson one, that's going to be a problem because this defense, I was saying early in the season, even before the season, I said, if Detroit's defense, which is like a bottom 3 unit in the past, I go, if they could be like a bottom 12 unit, they, with their offense, they could be super dangerous. Aiden Hutchinson is a massive loss because they had Marcus Davenport on the other side. He was never, they signed him in free agency. He's never been healthy in his career when he was at New Orleans, but they lost him. They really have no great edge presence now. And so those corners who are an emerging group, but far from a shutdown group, they're going to have to cover longer now. And so the Lions are going to be potentially back in last year's shoes where it's going to be shootout after shootout, which shootouts, you know what happens? One bad thing happens on the wrong end of a shootout and you lose the game. Yeah. So that's a potential problem that with Hutchinson rolling, and again, nobody's fault that Hutchinson got hurt, but that's a devastating injury. Quickly on the Dallas side, Anthony, this is what I was always worried about. Everybody knows Dallas has to come in a game. They're going to pass, but the threat of the run is there when the games are close or if Dallas is leading. In a game where Dallas falls behind, now the defense has no concern of the run. The center's a rookie, and he's not very good yet, and he may or may not be. The 2 tackles are kind of liabilities. And when a team knows Dallas has to throw, and you could pin your ears back and just go after them. We see Dak with a 17 for 33, a $178, and 2 picks. That's what we get. CeeDee Lamb has not had a monstrous game last year. I'm not sure. In the last 3, I know he hasn't hit 100 yards. He's come close. And I don't know if he had one before then, but he hasn't had a CeeDee Lamb game yet. But quickly on Dallas, if they're going to fall behind with that bad defense, is this offense going to be in massive trouble when defenses know they have no alternative?
Being one-dimensional in the NFL, especially, I think we're in a league now where the running game's coming back a little bit, and the passing game so much more is predicated on getting an established run. And this Mike McCarthy offense is predicated on getting an established run. They obviously mismanaged this backfield. This offense could be in trouble, and they're going to especially be in trouble against these teams like the Detroit Lions. I think if you're, the Giants defense, like that's a good defense. They don't have a scary pass rush. Like they don't have an Aiden Hutchinson. Those are the teams that are giving Dallas the biggest fits. But this isn't a new thing. The past 2 years with Dallas, if they fall into a 2-possession deficit early, they're going to get spanked. They can't climb out of it because defensively they can't send Micah Parsons. They can't do what they want to do. They can't run. And it's just Dak has to throw it 50 times. And that's not how Dak Prescott wins football games. And you can go back to his rookie year and see that.
Next reaction number 3. The Packers offense looked in top form. They played the Cardinals. Again, I get it. The Cardinals are a bad defense. They don't have anything. They have no pass rush. They can't cover. But what I really liked, though, was we get Watson back from the injury. Now they get him isolated. This is total Matt LaFleur, though. Gets Watson isolated on the safety, Budda Baker. Like a safety covering Christian Watson. That's never going to work. 3 for 68 and a touchdown. Romeo Doubs. I'm not going to pretend to know what really went on there. I hope everything's fine with him. But he comes back. Only 4 targets. But 2 of them find the end zone. So maybe he's happier now, whatever the deal is. Jaden Reed does hurt his ankle. He only played, I think, 53% of the snaps. That sounds right, top of my head. He goes 6 for 28 and a touch. So all 3 of those receivers score. Again, bad defense. But here's my point, Anthony. If this offense picks up where it was at the second half of last season when they were just ripping teams up, Josh Jacobs has not been a good fantasy player. He has very few games. One game, I think, with 100 scrimmage yards. He has 1 touchdown. But if this passing game keeps building and going forward, there's going to be a lot more space for the running game, and this could become a lethal offense against better opponents. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, Jordan Love's playing really good football and, getting better by the week. In every game started this year, he's either thrown 2 or 4 touchdowns. Now, the decision making, we're starting, there's a little bit of a bad Jordan Love, right? He's a gunslinger. He's thrown at least 1 interception in every game. But I think that comes with the guy and the type of player he is. But there's some nice upcoming matchups, like a nice run, Houston, Jacksonville. Detroit, I don't think their defense isn't as good. It's nice, but it's not as good as they played against Dallas, right? We know Dallas, we just talked about, they're a dumpster fire. There's going to be a lot of shootouts. The true test for Jordan Love is going to come week 11 and week 12. That's at Chicago and San Francisco.
Reaction number 4. The Buccaneers offense is on a roll. They play at New Orleans. New Orleans is a decent defense. And it was a weird game. All right. Winfield returns a fumble when Olave should have been a personal foul, head-to-head contact. It wasn't. Fumble. Winfield scores. Weird game. The Saints return a punt for a touchdown. I think they get a defensive score too. It's 27-24 at the half. And then we see the rest of the game, the Bucs just roll. Baker Mayfield does throw 3 picks. Again, it was a real ugly game, and especially in the first half. But he throws for 325. 4 touchdowns. Mike Evans missed a little time in that game with an injury, but he ended up playing more than half the snaps. Mike Evans and I didn't see, it wasn't like Lattimore was on him every play. I saw other plays where Alante Taylor was on him, but Evans did his New Orleans thing, 2 for 34. But Chris Godwin, he gets his late catch and he breaks some tackles, sloppy tackling, really. 11 for $125 and 2 touchdowns. The running backs, like we talked about in waivers, Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, they go for over 200 yards on the ground. They go for 80 yards through the air. They started steamrolling New Orleans. Can this offense be a top 7 or so offense, or is it kind of 1 week things work perfectly for them?
It is so difficult for me to because we've seen these big pop games, and when we've seen Tampa not be able to get out of their own way, but they're a 4-2 team right now. And that was a difficult place to play. Like New Orleans is a place that historically we know Mike Evans struggles and Chris Godwin plays well. So like we did see that. Is this game different with Derek Carr? That's the first thing I think about, because it was Spencer Rattler. He was sacked 5 times. 2 interceptions. I think Olave lost a fumble. So like this game possibly isn't a 50 burger if Derek Carr's in there. Because I will say one thing, like Saints put up 27 with Spencer Rattler. This may be a 1-score ball game because Tampa's defense not that good either.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to remember. I know there was a punt return touchdown by Shaheed. I think there was a defensive score as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. So it was just a very odd game. And in the second half, though, that's when the offense really took hold, and it was just insanity. But, all right, all that said, let's see if I can quickly find the touchdown here. So, yeah, we had the no need to go through it now. If there was a defensive touchdown, I just can't remember exactly what happened there. But fumble return.
I think there was, because I remember the announcer saying that there was 3 different types of scores.
Yeah, there we go. So there we go. Yeah, perfect there. All right, so let's do one last quick reaction. The Bears are quietly 4-2. Easier schedule recently. I get it. They played Carolina. They played the Rams. They played Jacksonville. They've had some easy games. But the Bears are 4-2. And the run defense, not great. It was decent yesterday. Their pass defense missed 2 players. A strong safety was out. Tyreek Stevens was out. They actually lost one of their other corners. I think Kyler Gordon went down in this game. Slot corner. That could be interesting. But it's Caleb Williams. And I know we talked about him in the waiver section. The spatial awareness, I mentioned this last week, that the kid's showing is incredible. I know these aren't great pass rushes, but what he's doing is he's staying in the pocket, and he knows that there's peripheral, where the pressure's coming, how close it is. He stays in the pocket until he can't. And then when he moves, now he has multiple options. He knows when to run now. He's done 2 games in a row. He knows when just to move out to buy time. He knows when to make the throw. He's spreading the ball around to different receivers. I really think, and I don't know. They're going to need somebody in their division to have like an injury problem, because I don't see how they get past the Vikings, the Packers, or the Lions. And there's not 4 teams in the division making the playoffs. So there's that. But the Bears are 4-2, Anthony. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not like, as bad as it was, I always in the back of my head, it was just that it was a tough schedule to start, and the schedule really did soften up. And, and I truly believe Caleb Williams is as advertised. And a lot of it, like, sometimes like I gravitate towards players. And, if you watch Hard Knocks, you watch how he carries himself because the kid takes a lot of unnecessary heat. He just carries himself different. And to me, that means he has it upstairs, which is important for quarterbacks. You have it upstairs to navigate through all the BS. You can go handle adversity on a field. So I look at that like the Bears are 4-2. This is a really good defense. They have a lot of personnel. I don't think it's crazy to think that this is a 4-way race for the division. Right? Like this division is dominant. They're all week in and week out. This entire division is playing impressive football, no matter who the opponent is. And we could be looking at a December where, like, what if all of these teams are, I don't know, like within a game of each other? Like, that's not impossible.
Now that you say that, no Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions.
Right?
If the Bears play the Lions, can they get in a shootout with them? Because those corners are not DJ Moore good. They're not Rome Odunze good. Not that Odunze's been lighting up the world. If Keenan Allen's healthy, they have a tactical advantage there. Detroit stops the run, so what? Wow, this is going to be fun. The Bears are fun to watch right now, and it's good to see they have a quarterback that's actually doing some good things. 4 touchdown passes. Somebody mentioned it. Uncle Ted said, in London, 4 touchdown passes for a rookie, and it should have been 5. There was one where, there should have been a 5th one, but it didn't. I can't remember what happened. If it was a DJ Moore one where they got stopped a little bit short, but but there should have been a 5th one. I remember I was narrating my I was doing my start sit show, and I was kind of watching out the corner of my eye. I go, that was touchdown number 5, and then I look back, no, it's not. So he had like a 5th one right there.
I think it was DJ. Because I had a touchdown score ticking on,
That hurt because that was his fantasy day. It was like 4 for 20.
Yep.
He just gets those couple extra inches and the ball's in the end zone. Now we're at least talking double-digit PPR day, which we could have lived with. It's tough. Everybody, thanks for hanging with us. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day. We'll be back Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern with the weekly ranking show. Be back on the weekend, Sunday, with the Start Sit show. Anthony, why don't you tell everybody quickly about the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube page and the kind of stuff we got going up there?
Yeah, we have a lot going on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Jim and I all over it. We have other creators, but selfishly speaking for ourselves, we're always doing shorts. We're doing standalone short videos, whether things like this, the waiver wire. We do must ads. I do a panic meter. Jim and I team up and we do a sneaky starts, must start, must sit. We have it all covered on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel. So if you're interested in this type of content, hit the subscribe button and hit the alert icon. What that's going to do, it's going to notify you anytime we are live like this to answer your questions, or it'll notify you anytime we drop new content.
Great stuff. You remember, give Anthony a follow at The Real NFL Guru. You can catch me over at Jim Coventry NFL. We want to thank everybody who hung out with us in the chat today. Everybody, again, see you soon and have a great day.